Hello, friends. Welcome to Wednesday night at Empty Cloud. Due to various causes and conditions, whatever monastic was originally supposed to do this is unable. And then there was supposed to be a monastic panel. And then that panel was winnowed down to me. So we will hang out for the next hour or so and use the same format. We have a topic, and I'm going to give my thoughts on the topic, and then people can engage in a discussion, ask questions. Right? This is actually a topic I find to be very, very important, a topic I think about quite often. Let's give it a minute or two, and we'll wait for people to come in. Hello, Ian, Rick, Kumu, Richard, Jayanta, Dhamma Learner, Janaki, Chittapala, Supani, and Yankee. Some names I'm not familiar with and some names I've seen as regulars. Welcome all. We'll give it another minute or so and then we'll get started. Hola, amigo. Trocitos de Dama, Meta from Mexico City. I don't know if I said that right. I think I might have said it right. I've not seen that word before. Trocitos. All right. Hello, Karen. Hello, Bill. Welcome. All right. I think that's enough for now. Hello, John. We'll get started. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, friends. So the topic today for discussion is the Fourfold Assembly and the growth of the Dhamma outside of Asia. I originally said in the West, but actually I think outside of Asia is probably a better topic because there are people all over the world in different places that are growing the Dhamma outside of the ancient homelands of Buddhism. So I think this is a good topic for us to discuss. But the first thing I want to discuss to set the groundwork for this is the importance of what the Buddha called the Fourfold Assembly. This Fourfold Assembly is not something that's really discussed a lot. It's not talked about much. It could be because in general, the suttas are not something that's really talked about much in the Buddhist world. But the Fourfold Assembly is quite literally the vehicle that the Buddha created for the dissemination, the growth, and the keeping alive of his teachings throughout the millennia. This Fourfold Assembly, the importance of this Fourfold Assembly cannot be overstated. If there is no Fourfold Assembly, there is no more Dhamma. So what is this Fourfold Assembly? I think we should go. I know Bhante usually doesn't share screen, But I think we should go right to the suttas. I'm going to share screen, and so you can see it as well. We're going to read from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, which is the last days of the Buddha's life, the last 3 months in the Digha Nikaya. And we're going to read about this Fourfold Assembly. If I can do this, let me see here. Maybe not. Worst comes to worst, I'll just read it. You can hear it anyway. All right. So it's not letting me. Oh, wait. Okay. Never mind. So I use the same streaming program, and it works on my computer when I do my own streams, but it's not working. So we'll just read it, and you can listen. Here's the link for those of you who'd like to follow along. Under the Appeal of Mara section, which is a little bit less than halfway through. And then not longer Ananda had left, Mara the wicked went up to the Buddha, stood to one side and said to him, "Sir, may the Blessed One now become fully extinguished. May the Holy One now become fully extinguished. Now is the time for the Buddha to become fully extinguished." So you see this in the suttas a couple times, like especially when the Buddha first became awakened. Mara's like, "Yeah, you became awakened. Now go away now. Go, you don't need to do the whole teaching thing and share the Dhamma with people and create a fourfold assembly. Don't do any of that. Just go away." And so, sir, but this is what the Buddha said after his awakening to Mara. "Wicked one, I will not become fully extinguished until I have." There's 4. I'm gonna just name all 4 and then read the paragraph. Bhikkhu, disciples. Bhikkhuni, disciples. Lay women, disciples. Laymen, disciples. That's the Fourfold Assembly. Men and women who are both monastic and lay people. Very important thing. Now, what does the Buddha say about these 4 groups? Until I have these 4 groups who are competent, educated, assured, learned, have memorized the teachings, and practice in line with the teachings. Notice here that he's not just talking about monks. He's talking about all 4. He's talking about lay people and monastics. And you actually see this in the suttas. Lay people like Householder Chitta, who was so learned in practice that he actually taught monks. Right? The Buddha does not, the Buddha understands in the suttas as you read them that not all lay people will want to do the full practice, but he never discourages lay people from doing the full practice. He encourages us, whether lay people or monastic, man or woman, that we practice the Dhamma, learn the Dhamma very well. That's how important this is, right? Not until they practice properly, living in line with the teaching. Not until they've learned their tradition and explain, teach, assert, establish, disclose, analyze, and make it clear. Again, this is not just about monastics. This is very clearly laid out that this is applying to lay people just the same as monastics. Not until they can legitimately and completely refute the doctrines of others that come up and teach with demonstrable basis. So the Buddha said in the beginning of his dispensation that I will not go away. I will not enter parinibbana until I have set up men and women, monastics and lay people, who are learned and practicing well and can share the Dhamma, pass on the Dhamma. Right? For laity, through their children. For monastics, through their monastic children. Right? The men and women who become ordained and who are trained. These four, this group, this fourfold assembly, is quite literally the vehicle, the vessel, upon which the Buddha built and then left as the vehicle that brought the teachings, brought the Dhamma down to this day. For 2,500 years, men and women have been doing this. Monastics and lay people have been doing this. So that someone born on the other side of the world from where the Buddha lived, can hear the Dhamma, learn the Dhamma, and then even become a monastic in his teachings. That's how important the Fourfold Assembly is. Quite literally, if you don't have a full Fourfold Assembly, you have a weakened Dhamma. And this is why, especially in places like the West, new places that don't have traditional Buddhism. This is why, especially, it's important to, for the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, the bhikkhus, and I guess at that point it would be salmonaries and mechis and dhamma, the various pre-monastic or not fully monastic ways of spiritual practice that women have had in the various Theravada countries. It's why it's so important that the bhikkhuni order was revived, so that we could have, as the Dhamma spreads to places like America, right, we could have that full Fourfold Assembly together. On my online community, the Discord community that I started years ago and that I help to run now, we have both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. It's not just me. And every Sunday when we get together to read the suttas, sometimes, and everybody knows it, some of you are in the chat right now, you're hearing me talk, you know that when like Ayasudhamma or Ayapasana comes on, I fully make it clear that guess what? We have the Fourfold Assembly right here. The Fourfold Assembly is here together, reading and listening to the teachings of the Buddha. That's so important. I was ordained at Bhavana Society, and Bhavana Society for like 15, 20 years had both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis living there. But by the time I moved there, the bhikkhunis were not there anymore. They had moved on. Many of them were abbotesses or abbots of their own place, doing their own thing, senior monastics. And I remember the women would say, Bhante, where are all the bhikkhunis? And I would say, California and a little bit south, right? They're kind of all spread out all over the place. And that made me realize, it's actually quite important that the Fourfold Assembly be very strong. And I think this is why it's also good that lay people, not just Western lay people, right? Traditionally, Westerners who come to Buddhism, they go right into the meditation, right? But even many people born in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, all these places, who their ancestors mostly they just did dana and sila, but now they're doing also bhavana. They're doing meditation to fully flesh out. That's the full Noble Eightfold Path. So we're in a way kind of living in a good, I would say, a golden age of Dhamma in the world. I know in a lot of places, in a lot of Buddhist places, the prevalent view of things is that we're actually in the Dhamma ending age, that the Dhamma is too corrupt. Nobody can become awakened. But I don't think so. Actually, I think things are looking up, to be honest with you. I think we're in a golden age. Especially even many Buddhist people, like Sri Lankan people, who I met, and they said, Bhante, I never was able to read these teachings in my own language. I had to read them in English. And I thought, wow, that's kind of sad. This is a person who comes from a lineage who guarded the Dhamma for 2,500 years, the Sri Lankan people. And he couldn't read these teachings in his own language, but he was able to read them. Somebody like me, who was not even born in a Buddhist country, was able to read them. That's an amazing thing. So this Fourfold Assembly, and the Buddha, the way he speaks about the Fourfold Assembly is a clarion call to us. Right? The Buddha is setting the standard there. That all of my disciples, lay or monastic, should be practicing well, learned, understand the teachings, and know how to pass on those teachings. And so this can be a good reflection for yourself. Are you living up to that ideal? I mean, nobody's living up to it perfectly, not even most monks, I'm sure. But this is something that we can reflect on, try to move towards. Why? For the benefit of yourself and others. What did the Buddha say to those first 60 arahants? Go forth, not two in the same direction, for the benefit of the many folk. And now in a place like America, I mean, I'll speak mostly about America because America is the place I know best. It's where I live. America, because it's been so open to all of the world to come over the last 100 some odd years, there's all kinds of Buddhism in America now. There's Mahayana, there's Tibetan, there's Theravada, there's secular, there's quasi-secular, there's quasi-Buddhist, there's all kinds of variety of ways of Buddhism growing in America. And America is a big enough place that they actually all can kind of coexist. Right? One group, of course, will have their own opinions about the other group. I'm sure, us full Buddhists, sometimes we can look down on like the secular Buddhists, or like, oh, they're not really practicing Buddhism. Right? And then the Theravada says this about the Mahayana, and the Mahayana says this about the Theravada. Those things exist. But really, this is a golden opportunity to plant seeds that will grow to who knows what kind of heights, right? In the years, decades, even centuries to come. I think about this often. There was a time when there was no Thai Buddhism, when there was no Chinese Buddhism, there's no Vietnamese Buddhism, Korean Buddhism, Burmese Buddhism. But people moved to those areas and the Dhamma grew. And centuries later, even these countries are fully Buddhist countries, or mostly Buddhist countries. So when you have, I think in America, actually, the Fourfold Assembly is pretty well in attendance in multiple traditions. And it's growing. Slowly, but it's growing. When I first got into Buddhism, and especially Theravada, especially the suttas, it was so impactful to me that a seed was born. Like the seed of, this is so amazing that I want to be able to share this with other people like me, who, if for not of hearing it, would be lost. Right? I had so much gratitude that people like my preceptor, Bhante Gunaratana, right, came to America from Asia to share the Dhamma with people in my country. So much gratitude for that I knew that a part of me didn't want it. A part of me just wants to be in a cave in the woods and attain awakening and not deal with people. But there's another part of me that is kind of tireless in the desire to grow the Dhamma so that more people can experience it, so more people can practice it. And so I used to think mostly about growing the Dhamma in America. Now I think about growing the Dhamma in the Americas. I've expanded my perspective. I'm not worried about the whole world. There's lots of people in all kinds of different places in the world who can grow the Dhamma in their own areas. But I think about in America, North America, Canada, South America, Central America, and I meet people online. In my online community, we have people from every continent except for Antarctica. People just scattered across the world, basically by themselves. But because of the internet, they're able to come on and hear the Dhamma and listen to the Dhamma and practice. That's one of the reasons why I think we're in a golden age of the Dhamma, actually. And so I think about what can I do? Like what's my role in the future of growing the Dhamma in the Americas? Right? And it's not just myself. We have this kind of next generation. Bhante Sudaso and Ayasoma are part of this generation. Right? Ajahn Nisabo and Ajahn Kovilo over making Clear Mountain. There's a bunch of us who are kind of starting our places, starting our development. And most all of it, even Tan Pumuto up in Massachusetts with Upavana, right? And we're all kind of, how I look at like a lot of these people starting their own places, they're all rooted in the Buddhist cultures, but also not overly attached to them. They're actually trying to do something a little bit different. I think that's very important. My preceptor, Bhante Jayasāra, right? He's 95 now. He came over to America in the 1960s, 1963. And he would tell me stories about how he tried to kind of adapt to American culture a little bit and change things around. And, the American students would like it, but like the Sri Lankans would like, Bhante, you're a Sri Lankan monk. This is not how things are done. Right? So he would talk about the flack that he would get from more traditional Buddhists. And, when I think about that, I think, there are some people who want to grow the Dhamma in the West, and they want to totally divorce themselves from the Buddhist cultures and the Buddhist traditions. Oh, these Buddhist traditions are conservative, misogynistic, this, that, all these kind of things. And so they just want to throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think anytime that we seek to throw away ancient wisdom without any kind of thought of what should be kept, then a lot is lost. But on the other hand, when the Dhamma comes to a place like America, or even wherever, Mexico, Argentina, Chile, wherever, just like it changed a little bit when it went to China or when it went to Thailand or Sri Lanka or whatever, things need to adapt. Things need to change a little bit. So what I think about is, for myself, as somebody who's always kind of straddled the middle way in a lot of different things, from politics to fast food to whatever, I think about, like with my own organization that I want to build, how do I take what's great from the Buddhist traditions and merge that with what is good and will allow it to grow and flourish in a new place, right? Merging the old with the new, creating a sort of synthesis. And so that's what I think about a lot. Where does that synthesis go? Like, I'm not really connected or attached to any one Buddhist culture or tradition. That's one of the gifts that Bhante Jayasāra gave me. I'm not a Sri Lankan monk. I'm not a Thai monk. I'm not a Burmese monk. Bhante would say, we are just Buddhist monks. And I really liked that. I really liked that. I thought that was such a wonderful sentiment. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean I was like, well, I don't want to deal with these Sri Lankan people or these Thai people or these Burmese people. No, it means like, how can we do a synthesis where we can have in one place Thai people, Sri Lankan people, Burmese people, Westerners, all kinds of different people. That's what a place like America, place like Australia, places like the West that have this kind of very diverse group. That's just part and parcel for the country, right? We want to be what do they say? Inclusive. Right? The Dhamma is for everybody. Now, of course, sometimes when you try to be open for everybody, some people just won't be comfortable with that. They'd rather go to their more traditional places. And that's fine. You can't be for everybody. But I think the important thing, as I kind of wrap up here, just kind of giving you my thoughts, the important thing is having a discussion. And this is something I'm trying to actually put together, like a discussion of various monastics on the growth of the Dhamma in the West. There's no one way I think that it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen in a bunch of different ways. Just like the way things are done here at Empty Cloud are not all the way the things I'm going to be doing when I have my Maggaseka Vihara, right? There's going to be lots of differences. There might be some similarities. But the thing that connects us is that we're both growing the Dhamma in a new frontier, a new place, where the Dhamma will do what it's always done: flow and adapt and adjust. The Buddha knew this, right? The Buddha knew that, if you read the Vinaya, the monastic rules, you see that 90% of the rules are directly related to the cultural views of the time. And so the Buddha knew that, like, hundreds of years, as time changed and new different places, that things were going to have to change a little bit. That's why in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, at the end of the same sutta I just read from, he says, when I'm gone, if you wish, you can abolish the lesser rules. Now, of course, traditionally, some people will say that meant it was only one time. The Buddha never gave a time limit or a number limit. And it was only the Arahants, and they decided not to change anything. So who are we to change it? And I don't know. I think that the Buddha was wise enough to understand that just as his teachings had to adapt to the culture of ancient India to survive, they have to adapt in other places to survive as well, to change. But the important thing is to keep the core, to keep what is good. Like I say, I don't consider myself Sri Lankan monk, Thai monk, or whatever. Interestingly enough, the lineage I was born into as a monk is technically both Sri Lankan and Thai, which is an interesting thing. I kind of like that. But I like to take, there's a lot of good things that the way the Thai people do Buddhism. There's a lot of good things that the way that Sri Lankan people do Buddhism. And with my Italian ancestry and my love of ancient Romans, I kind of say, well, I do like the Romans. I take what's best from all the different cultures, right? And see if I can kind of merge them all into some kind of synthesis. And even places like that, like Ayatataloka, Dhammadharini, you can see a little bit of that as well. You go to her place, you can see a little bit of Sri Lankan and a little bit of Thai. These are things you can see in America. Right? If you go out and to see different places where the Dhamma is growing in different ways. So let me check the chat here. Hello, Ranga TP. All right, just seeing some comments. Hello, Metika, welcome. Love the synthetic Buddhism of the modern age. Yes, but it can also go too far into the wacky as well. That's why I'm saying it's not easy to do it well, right? It's not easy. Um, you can go a little bit too far overboard. There needs to be a balance, a middle way, right? And it's something I think about somewhat often. Okay, so I have Jonas. What's your advice for lay teachers who see more and more teacher and training meditation certifications? And what about the buy your way into tradition practices, unqualified teachers and irresponsible teacher-student relationships? See, Joe, well, unfortunately, these are kind of areas where I'm wholly unqualified to say much about, because even from my early days of Buddhism, like when I became a Buddhist, I went right to the monks. And then I ended up going right to the suttas. So there's a lot about the lay end of things that I don't know. I've learned more and I've met more lay teachers since becoming a monk than before. But what I will say is, the way I look at it in America is this. And I've seen this with my own eyes as I've traveled the country to share Dhamma, in my now 6 years as a bhikkhu. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of little groups of lay people, like little islands, in hundreds or thousands of little towns all over the country. I've been to a bunch of them in maybe like 6 or 7 states. And in a way, this is kind of like, this is the future of Theravada in a way. What's going on, in my opinion, is that there's too much demand and not enough supply. So to meet that supply, there's come up this lay teacher industry. And I've met many of them who've gone through this. I don't know a lot about other ones, but I know Barry IMS, is it Cornfield? I always mix the big lay teachers up. But I know a couple who have gone through this 2-year process, and they have to do multiple retreats, and they have to go stay there, and then they have to do, and it's not it's not like what's that thing like people joke about, like you go online and you apply and like in 10 minutes you can be a preacher, right? Something like that is not like that, right? It's a 2-year process is better than it's somebody kind of qualified in that way. It's meeting another demand. What's the demand? You can look at you go, Bhante Jay, where the heck is your qualifications? And I say, well, this, right? Right? Monks don't need qualifications because they're wearing their qualification, right? People have the assumption that they've been trained well and that they've learned the Dhamma from teachers and things like that, right? So there's like kind of an automatic forgiveness or an automatic assumption. And it's not necessarily the best thing, because believe me, I met a lot of monks and yeah, I no longer have that automatic assumption. But, but for lay people who become teachers, it's kind of like, well, who the heck are you and where were you trained? A lot of times you'll see like Jack Cornfield and the other guy, they have, on their little resumes, they have, ordained with Ajahn Chah for like 2 years or whatever. So like even they kind of connect with monastics in some way or another. Right? So this has come up and it has its downsides, but I think it has its upsides as well. Will the people hear the Dhamma, like the true full Dhamma? Probably not. But in a way, it can be an opening that will allow them to go deeper. In terms of dealing with teachers, I have said this from the beginning, and I will always say it. Don't just put all your trust in one teacher. Don't just listen to one teacher. Do not do that. Listen to multiple teachers. Get various perspectives. Have a team. I've never had just one teacher. Never once. When I look back at my kind of Buddhist path, it was almost kind of like, what is it, the Zen thing? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. It was kind of like that. Like I had a monastic who was very prominent in my life for a certain period of time. And then when I didn't really need them anymore, they weren't. You know, Ajahn Brahm is a big example of that for the first many years of my practice. Ajahn Brahm was really important. Now I don't listen to his Dhamma talks or anything, but when I get to talk to him about Vinaya, I do. He's important to me in a monastic sense. Same thing with Bhante Ji. You know, Bhante Ji is very, very important to me, both before going to Bhavana, learning, going to retreats, and you know, and then going to live there and being ordained. Right? But now Bhante Ji and Bhavana is in my past, and I'm moving on. So there's a, you know, and I have a team of monastics who I kind of look to as wise people that I can talk to if I have a question about a sutta or such like that, right? And when you do that, what you realize is, like, you can get the 5 biggest names, say Bhante Ji, Ajahn Brahm, Thanissaro Bhikkhu, Bhikkhu Bodhi, right? You get, you know, whatever, all these big names, and you ask them the same question and watch yourself get about 3 to 4, maybe even 5 different answers. And you were, well, who's right? You have to practice and find out for yourself. But if you're just stuck on one teacher, just hung on the words of one teacher, then you're kind of stuck out to dry. It's not, you know, you might have a great teacher, and that teacher might be all you need, but chances are that's probably not all you need. Depends on the person, depends on the tradition, a lot of different things. This is a great question, Bill, a great question. Can you talk about the role of the lay community besides taking care of monks? This actually can help me talk a little bit more about, you know, trying to do everything I wanted to talk about in a half hour is always tough. I'm not really good at being succinct. But the Fourfold Assembly acts as a symbiotic relationship. The role of the monastics is to keep the teachings alive. This was especially true in the early days before it was written down, where the monastics were grouped into teams and they memorized and recited various parts of the suttas over and over again, right? So a large part of that monastic goal is to keep the teachings alive. And that's why so many monastics are so important, so hell-bent about Pali, the importance of Pali, keeping Pali alive. And I agree, I'm the same way. I'm much less about trying to throw a lot of Pali words at lay people. I do it here and there, but, you know, and lay people should learn at least the most important Pali words. But, you know, most lay people, even including myself as a lay person, a little bit too much. Some lay people, yes, they like the languages, they can learn it. But so, and then of course, obviously the monastic life is also a better vehicle for somebody who actually wants to kind of have a more supercharged kind of path, right? To have the causes and conditions be a little bit more conducive towards awakening in this very life. It's not always the case, but in general, that's the idea. Now, again, for the laity, what's the role of the laity besides taking care of the monks? Well, you have to think about this, right? Thinking about keeping the Dhamma alive for the next generation. You going to a monastery to give food, going to the monastery to do some work, maintenance, etc., helping to build another monastery. And I mean, in a place like Thailand or Sri Lanka, where there's, I don't know how many, probably hundreds or thousands, is it going to make a difference? Probably not. But if another one in a place like America or Europe or somewhere, that can make a huge difference. Right? So the people who support such places are actively playing a role in sharing the Dhamma. Right? You should not just think about, oh, I do this good thing and I get good merit for future life. But no, actually, this is where the Sri Lankans really, like even the average Sri Lankan layperson, you talk to them, they have it ingrained, 2,000 plus years of ingrained of being guardians of the Dhamma. Right? It is ingrained in their culture to keep the Dhamma alive. Okay? That's a very, very good thing to have. A very good mindset. It's not just about, oh, I'm just going to go and give food and then I'll go to heaven or whatever. No. I am actively contributing to the growth of the Dhamma in the world so that more people can hear the Dhamma, so that more people can practice the Dhamma, so that the Dhamma can grow. Right? For a lay person, that's an offering to be as part of a team, part of a quest, part of a journey of you're helping yourself and you're also helping others. Helping the Dhamma to grow. Not only that, what is the role of lay community? What does the Buddha say? To be learned, to be able to share the Dhamma. Now, of course, this doesn't mean like you get up on a pulpit necessarily and talk. Sometimes it does. Even myself, when I was a layperson, I was kind of asked to give Dhamma talks here and there. I always kind of felt uncomfortable doing it, but, it was something that was requested of me, and I did it because I wanted to help share the Dhamma, and I always made sure that I was very humble in what I could share and what I couldn't. But there's nothing wrong with lay people studying and understanding and practicing the Dhamma well and being able to share it. Share it with friends and family, people who ask, right? These kind of things. It's very important to be able to do that. To be well knowledgeable and practiced so that you can discuss with your fellow Kalyanamitas to help each other out. Just like monastics, part of our job is to look upon each other as like brothers and sisters or fathers and mothers, and to really help each other down the path. Same thing with lay people. Because I was the only Buddhist I knew in my daily life until I moved to the monastery to become a monk. When I would be able to travel to go to like a place like Bhavana and stay for like 3-4 days and meet other lay people, it was amazing to be able to do that and to sit and to discuss with them and talk to them about their practice. Right? That's very important. So you can act as a kind of role model and as a friend, as a Kalyanamitta, a good, virtuous friend to other lay people. But this is an important thing. This is not, the way Buddhism has kind of come down the path is that like the monks are like way up here and then the lay people are way down here. But if you look at the Vinaya and you look at like the early texts, it's more like here. like, yeah, the monastics are seen, are respected as, because they've, given up or attempted to give up the worldly stuff. But it is a bit more balanced because it was more of a team. Right? It was really more of like this kind of, you can see this of like everyone is practicing to the best of their ability and doing what they can to grow the Dhamma. And that's something that lay people can do in their own way, in their own capacities, just as monks. This is one of the things that's great about Buddhism. I had a therapist for 4 years, and towards the end, like after I became a Buddhist, and then I told him I'm going to become a monk, and he's a very humble guy, very, very, very knowledgeable, well-respected therapist in New Jersey. But what he said was, he's like, I didn't really do much. Actually, Buddhism mostly did everything for you. And he's lessening his impact on me, but in a way, he's also quite astute. Right? The Buddha actually gives us like a path, a meaning. The Buddha calls this path the Ariya Pariyesana, the noble quest, the noble search. Following the Noble Eightfold Path is that noble quest. Part of that noble quest, that noble journey, is doing what you can to keep the Dhamma alive and to allow it to grow. Whether you're a layperson or a monastic, this is what I say, whether you're a layperson or a monastic, what's the path of practice? The Noble Eightfold Path. Right? It's not like you become a monastic and they're like, okay, now let me teach you the super secret Noble Eightfold Path that only monastics know. No, it's the Noble Eightfold Path. Whether you're a layperson or a monastic, that is the fourth noble truth, the way that leads to the cessation of suffering. So think about your Buddhist practice, your path as that, a journey, a quest. Think about how you can grow yourself and grow the Dhamma. Right? For many people who are Buddhist in America, they're kind of siloed, right? In their, the Thai people are kind of siloed in their Thai Wat, and they don't really speak much English. It's just Thai there. The Sri Lankan people are siloed in their vihara. They don't really speak much English, and somebody like me goes to these, and I have gone to this is an experiences that I had, and I gained a little bit, but I couldn't really gain much because there was just too many barriers there. Right? Even places like that, I'd encourage to try to be more open for people who might come and be like, what is this? Maybe I want to learn more. That's it. That's also very important for Buddhist-born people in America, in the West, in non-Buddhist countries, to think about being that open and outreach kind of a community for the local people. There's there's two wise statements that I really love from Thai forest monastics. One is from Ajahn Chah. The other one I've tried to attribute. I can't find it. I don't know who said it, but I heard it years ago. That one goes like this. Buddhism does not fully take root in a country until there are local monks supported by local people. What does that mean? I fully assert right here and now that if every Thai, Sri Lankan, Burmese, Vietnamese, Korean, whatever. If every Buddhist immigrant just left America right now, Buddhism would basically die. Buddhism is essentially being supported and propped up by the Buddhist immigrants. Right? There are some local Buddhist monks. I'm one, right? I'm born in this country. And there are some local Buddhist lay people who really kind of understand a little bit the way somebody born in Sri Lanka or Thailand would understand. But for most, it's not really, because it's not enculturated in them from birth like it is in Buddhist countries. It's not quite there yet. So I think that's wise words from this Thai Ajahn. And I hope to kind of see that. Probably not in my lifetime, but I think it'll grow, you know. And again, like I say, a place like America is big enough for everybody. All different kinds of Buddhism and Buddhist practices. The other one Ajahn Chah said, and I quite like it. He says that Buddhism in Asia is like a big hollow tree. It's very ornate and big, but it's kind of lost a lot inside. It's become hollow. Because Buddhism in the West is like a small sapling, weak, but if nurtured well, can grow strong. And when I heard that from Ajahn Chah, I said, that to me, that's Ajahn Chah passing the baton to me and saying, well, get started. Start growing that tree. And I take that very seriously. Bhante Ji basically, is the same way. I have taken the baton. Bhante Ji's still alive, at least for now. I mean, he's 95, but he's not going to be around for a long time. But I take it very seriously. Like, I'm taking the baton from this previous tradition, and what am I doing to grow the tree? It's an important question for all of us, lay people and monastics. What am I doing to grow the tree? Kumu says, Bhante, did the Buddha lay down any rules, conditions for the upasika and upasikas? Not really. I mean, other than practicing, practicing the 8 precepts on Aposita and things like that. It's mostly just the regular practice, right? The Noble Eightfold Path. You can see various teachings about to lay people and say, like the Sigalovada Sutta and the Digha Nikaya. But not like a kind of like a full spread out kind of a thing like you would see for monastics. No. Bill Stewart says Goldstein. Yes, that's the other person. I was, yeah, Joseph Goldstein, and I forgot. I forgot the other one now. But anyway, not that important for right now. Unisite theory says, what is Ajahn Brahm like as a teacher and as a person as a whole? Ajahn Brahm is like, if there was like a Catholic Church of Buddhism, like Ajahn Brahm would be named like the teacher of newbies. right? Like of Westerners. Like somebody like Ajahn Brahm is perfect for people like me. Right? Without Ajahn Brahm, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. Without Bhante Ji, I wouldn't be where I am today. Without Bhante Dhammajiva of Sri Lanka, I wouldn't be where I am today. Right? So Ajahn Brahm is very, very important, especially for those people who are making that transition from Christianity or atheism to Buddhism. Very important. You know, people say that his Friday night talks are like pop Buddhism and things like that. He gets derided in that way. But they're not meant to be deep and serious in a way, right? They're meant to be a little bit more open for a more general thing. You can read, you can see his videos where he talks about, teaches the suttas and things like that. Ajahn Brahm is basically exactly how you see him in the videos, even when there's not that many people around. He's just kind of like a happy, jovial kind of a guy. And I was very happy that I've been able to spend a couple of days with him as close as I was. You know, and he's been very good to me, very kind to me as a monk that's not even in his tradition. His tradition has gone out of their way for me once or twice, and that's something that I will always remember. And hopefully, I'm supposed to be going to Australia in November, so hopefully I'll be there in the middle of November at Bodhinyana and 3 or 4 other monasteries in Australia. I'm going to be doing an Australian tour. But in terms of how the Asian Sangha sees him, honestly, I don't know. I'm not very connected with Asia, so I really don't know. All right. Rick has a question. Hey, Rick, did you ever look up Gatikara? What was that from last week's live stream? Gatikara the Potter. So, Bhante, can you share some reflections on lay people practicing in isolation without access to local monastics or lay community? Well, you're doing one of the suggestions. You're able to be online. You're able to hear the Dhamma online, listen to Dhamma talks, ask questions. It's very important. It's the same thing that you would do if you lived at a monastery or lived close to one. Golden age. It's a golden age that you can do it. You can actually contact somebody online. The very first time I ever heard a monk speak live in my past was in a early version of what you would now consider to be the Meta, that VR thing that Facebook is doing. It's a program called Second Life, where I logged my little avatar in and I sat on a little, virtual meditation cushion. And then the monk came and sat down, and there's a little monk avatar that sat. And then I heard Bhante Yuttadhammo's voice come out. And so I got to hear a Dhamma talk live in a virtual world. And then I became the monk who started giving Dhamma talks live in that virtual world. Right? So it's being able to hear the Dhamma, have contact with monastics and teachers and things like that is invaluable. What I would also say is do your best to, in regular intervals, to go to a place. Even if it's just a couple times a year, to go to a place for a couple days, to be in a monastery, to be with fellow Kalyanamitas. Try to do your best to go to a place. You don't have to go live there, but every once in a while to go to a place. That's very important. And the other is to, when you are practicing by yourself, Everybody on the path should do this, but a lot of people get lazy if they have monks around. But when you don't have monks around, you have to investigate more. You have to question more. You have to trial and error more. You have to figure things out more. And in my opinion, you're better off for it. Because that's really what you're supposed to do. You read the suttas, that's what the Buddha is telling you to do. Put it into practice. Always questioning, always investigating, always trying new things. You hear a Dhamma talk, Bhante such and says, try this, try it out. Give it a good chance. Couple weeks, month. You say, this is not my thing. Not going to do it. There's way more practices that I've tried and now gave up than I do in my 17 years of practice. But those are my suggestions. All right, friends. So unless there's any further questions, I think this might be a good time to end. I have to be up at 3:30 this morning because I'm taking a flight to California. Going to San Francisco. And no flowers in my hair either. All right. Okay. All right, friends. Until next time, Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy, practice well, and be well. Until we meet again, may you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice. And of course, remember, Thursday, Friday, Thursday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, New York time, and 7:30, same time. Next 2 nights, you have tomorrow night monk panel, and then monk chat. So next two mornings, next 2 nights, live streams from Empty Cloud.